They still talk about it in that small village on the edge of Kenya's Great Rift Valley, a place where the dust rises like smoke, where mobile signals vanish without warning, and where hospitals exist, mostly as buildings, not functioning facilities. They call it the night the Filipino doctor saved a life with nothing but his hands, the moonlight, and a miracle. His real name is Dr. Alfredo Frito Manzano, a modest surgeon from Iloilo, who never even liked being called a hero. But that one night would follow him forever. Frito didn't come to Africa to perform miracles. He came as a volunteer for a 3-month medical outreach program, expecting to do routine checkups, health training, and maybe assist in a few minor emergencies. Nothing in his training prepared him for what would happen on his 52nd day in the village of Lancashire. He had finished a long afternoon clinic, tending to children with fevers, mothers with infections, and old men with aching backs. The sun dipped slowly behind the acacia trees. The distant sound of cows announced that the Maasai herders were heading home. The clinic, a humble 2-room cement building, was closing for the night. Frito stretched his back and rubbed his eyelids, ready to call it a day. Then the shouting started. It began faintly at first, carried by the wind. But soon it became louder, urgent, unmistakably full of panic. People were running toward the clinic, and in the middle of the chaos were 2 men carrying someone on a makeshift stretcher made of branches and rope. Frito rushed out instinctively. The moment he saw the patient, he felt a jolt of alarm shoot through him. It was a young boy, maybe 12, drenched in blood. A deep, wound-long, jagged, and horrifying cut crossed his abdomen. His breathing was shallow, his eyes half open. Internal organs threatened to spill out with every jolt of the stretcher. The smell of dust, sweat, and blood mixed in the evening air. What happened? Frito asked as the villagers set the boy down inside the clinic. Cowhorn, one of the herders said breathlessly. He scared the calf, the mother charged. We cannot stop her. Frito inspected the wound and felt his stomach drop. The cut was deep enough to require immediate surgery, not stitches, not bandages, surgery, and not the kind done in a normal clinic, the kind requiring a fully equipped operating room, anesthesia, monitors, sterilized tools, and trained staff, none of which existed here. The clinic had 3 working items: a flashlight, a blood pressure cuff that barely inflated, and a single half-empty roll of bandages. No painkillers strong enough for surgery. No antibiotics. No scalpels, just a few old-fashioned razor blades. No sterile gloves. Not even a generator. The village elder approached him. "Doctor," he said softly, "if you do not act, the boy will die." Frito looked at the child. The pulse in his neck flickered weakly. His belly rose and fell irregularly. Time was leaking away like the blood pooling under the stretcher. There was no ambulance for miles. The nearest functioning hospital was 4 hours away by motorbike, and night travel was too dangerous to attempt. There simply wasn't time. Frito's heart pounded. He thought of the years he spent studying medicine in the Philippines. He thought of the modern hospitals he had trained in, with gleaming instruments, polished floors, and teams of specialists. And now, here he was standing over a dying child in a remote African village, with fewer tools than what a first-year medical student would use in a school demonstration. "I need anything," he murmured. "Clean water, soap, cloth, threads, something I can use as a needle. Anything." The villagers moved instantly, spreading out like a wave. Within minutes, they returned with items none of them ideal, but all potentially life-saving. A pot of boiled water, a bottle of gin, a clean Maasai shuka cloth, a sewing needle usually used for repairing clothes, cotton from a mattress, even a metal spoon they heated over fire to sterilize. Frito stared at the items. This wasn't surgery. This was improvisation at the edge of possibility. But he knew one truth clearly: the boy would not survive the next hour without intervention. "Light," he said. A man held a kerosene lamp close to the table. Another shined the flashlight on the wound. The dim yellow glow cast shadows across the walls, making the whole room feel like a scene from another era. Frito took a deep breath, whispered a silent prayer, and began. He cleaned the wound with boiled water and gin, trying to ignore the boy's groans. He apologized softly to him, even though the child likely couldn't hear anymore. Using the heated spoon, he pressed gently on areas where bleeding was heavy, cauterizing as best as he could. The smell of burning flesh filled the room, making several villagers look away. "Stay with me?" Frito whispered. He needed to expose the wound more clearly. With no scalpel, he used a brand new razor blade, its edge glinting faintly in the lamplight. His hand trembled not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. One wrong move could end the boy's life. He stabilized the torn organs first, carefully repositioning them inside the abdominal cavity using his gloved but not sterile hands. He wished desperately for anesthesia. The boy twitched in pain. Frito held his shoulder gently. "I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." Next, he disinfected the sewing needle and fire, then threaded it using strands pulled from the shuka cloth. He stitched layer by layer muscle first, then skin. Each pull of the thread felt like tugging against fate. Sweat poured down his face. His shirt clung to his back. The flashlight flickered dangerously. At one point, the lamp sputtered, almost dying out. A villager rushed to refill it with oil. Another studied the boy's head. A woman hummed a soft Masere song, as if calling the spirits of the land to help the strange Filipino doctor trying his best under impossible circumstances. 2 hours passed. Then 3. Finally, with shaking hands and burning eyes, Frito tied the last knot on the makeshift stitches. The bleeding had slowed. The boy's breathing, though still shallow, was more rhythmic. Frito's entire body felt like it might fall apart. But he wasn't done. He prepared a final cloth dressing, soaked it in boiled water, pressed it gently over the wound, and secured it tight. He stepped back. His hands hung limp at his sides. The villagers waited for him to speak. "We did everything we could," he said softly. "Now we pray." The boy was moved to a cot. 2 women took turns watching him. A man fanned away the flies. Outside, the moon drifted across the sky, silver and ancient. Frito didn't sleep that night. He sat beside the child, listening to the faint rise and fall of his breathing. Every hour mattered. Every minute mattered. Twice the boy's pulse slowed, and twice Frito placed his ear against the child's chest, begging for any sign of life. Just before dawn, the boy coughed. A small, weak cough, but a cough nonetheless. His eyelids fluttered, his fingers twitched. Frito felt a wave of relief so powerful he nearly collapsed. "He will live," one of the elders whispered reverently. But Frito wasn't ready to celebrate. Infection was still a danger. Organ failure, internal bleeding. Anything could still go wrong. For the next 72 hours, Frito changed bandages, cleaned the stitches, monitored the boy's hydration, and administered what little over-the-counter medicine the clinic had. The villagers brought herbal teas, warm water, and even goat's milk, insisting they could help. Frito didn't object resources were resources. On the 4th day, the boy sat up. On the 7th day, he walked outside to feel the sun on his skin. On the 10th day, he was chasing chickens again. The village erupted in celebration. Children danced, women ululated. Men hugged Frito as if he were family. They prepared goat stew, roasted maize, and sweet chai tea. They called him Doctor of Miracles, though he personally felt it was more desperation than miracle. During the celebration, the village elder approached him with a wooden carving, a small figure of a healer holding a staff. "This is for you," the elder said. "You did what no doctor had ever done here. You saved a life with nothing but your courage." Frito smiled, though his eyes shimmered slightly. "I only did what any Filipino doctor would do." "Then your people are blessed," the elder replied. News spread beyond the village. A local journalist visited, then an NGO representative. Eventually, the story reached Kenyan newspapers under headlines like "Volunteer Doctor Performs Life-Saving Operation with Zero Equipment" and "Filipino Medic Defies Odds in Remote Village." When Frito returned to the Philippines after his mission, he went back to a normal hospital, performing surgeries with all the proper tools, machines, and teams. But he often found himself lost in thought, remembering that night in the dimly lit clinic, the terrified boy, the improvised tools, and the faces of people who believed in him even when he wasn't sure he believed in himself. He never told the story publicly. He refused interviews. He said the real miracle wasn't him, it was the villagers who trusted him, the boy who fought to live, in the circumstances that allowed everything to align just enough for survival. Years later, he received a letter from Lankasem. It came with a photo. The boy he saved, now a young man, stood beside a herd of cattle, smiling confidently at the camera. At the back of the photo were written just 5 words, "Because of you, I'm alive." Frito placed the photo on his desk. Beside it, he placed the wooden carving, the healer with the staff. Together, they reminded him of something profound, that medicine isn't just about equipment or technology. It's about heart, grit, and the willingness to act when every logical option has failed. And in that tiny clinic, on that impossible night, he learned the greatest lesson of his life. Sometimes, all a doctor truly needs is courage, 2 steady hands, and the belief that saving even one life is worth everything.